Welcome back everyone to another character design analysis. Today we've got Freja, who is a Danish bounty hunter. She used to do search and rescue for Overwatch before its disbandment. She was called Huntress from Project Prometheus, the codename for Overwatch after they cancelled Project Titan. She is a crossbow wielding, mobility focused DPS with plenty of room for growth and skill expression. From what I've seen, her gameplay is super fun and engaging, but we are here to evaluate her character design. And unfortunately, it doesn't quite measure up to her gameplay. Let's get started. For this, we're excluding her crossbow because that's not something she's wearing, rather wielding. Point of interest is what initially attracts me to the character. It's usually parts of the design that have more details and/or contrast and should inform us about who they are. These features should give them identity and set them apart from the roster. First element is her cape. They did a great job with this. It is a major highlight and central to her gameplay by providing her with omnidirectional quick dashes and a mid-air hover called updraft. It also provides a striking silhouette, although from behind it's a bit underwhelming, but we'll discuss her color palette later. Second interest area is her decollage. It's quite busy, so it naturally draws my attention, but a lot of the space is made of tactical gear and the fur lining from her hood. The only interesting thing to me would be the necklace, which I assume holds significance. Maybe it references her background from Overwatch 1 or Norse mythology. Who knows at this point? We can only hope it's something purposeful. Third area of interest is her bola launcher. It's a weapon that's unique to her. No one else in the game uses it. It supports her identity as a hunter because the weapon is literally meant for capturing prey. Bolas were used in the Peruvian Andes for hunting and in battle, so maybe she stayed and trained in Brunasapi for a while. So to preface this, I haven't been able to examine her model in-game closely. I'm working off of the spotlight art and the Blizzard HQ streams. There is a chance her model pulls off the color scheme better than what I'm seeing at the moment, but we probably won't know for sure until the playtest. Freja's design relies on a complementary color scheme with orange hair contrasting against the blue-gray outfit. The blue-gray tones are analogous and provide a cohesive and unified feel to her look. I determined all of this by breaking down her hue distribution. The histogram shows a strong presence of hues in the orange-red range around 15 to 30 degrees, which corresponds to Freja's hair. The blue-gray hues cluster around 180 to 220 degrees. This means they are analogous rather than a single hue. Analogous colors are hues that are similar and touch on the color wheel. One cool feature about analogous colors is that they often mirror colors found in nature, such as a field of flowers, the sunset, autumn leaves, and peacock feathers. Going back to the histogram, the orange range 15 to 30 degrees and the blue range 180 to 220 degrees are directly opposite on the color wheel, so they have a complementary relationship. If you're wondering why there's such a high frequency of red-orange hues, it's actually from the browns. It's hard to see, but browns, tans, and neutrals often have red-orange bases. You could even say these colors are near complementary to her blues, although they don't provide that much contrast. The brown pairs well with her analogous blue-gray hues. I think they work together to bring a subdued and naturalistic aesthetic. She's a bounty hunter, but maybe she spends a lot of time in the forest or out in nature. With analogous colors, there's always a fine line between looking cohesive and monotonous. Her colors lack the vibrancy and pop that so many of the other characters have. Overwatch in general looks a bit desaturated, so when you have a character like her with a soft color palette, plus the desaturated visual style, it just doesn't do her any favors. Honestly, darkening the brown tones more could make the lighter parts like the white and blue pop, or we could even boost the saturation of the glowy elements to have more contrast. At the end of the day, she's got to stand shoulder to shoulder with characters that feel larger than life. Chromed out Zen, RGB Sombra, a Ninja Turtle, a smart fridge, a horse, a giant pink mech. I'm also not a fan of how she lacks any accent colors on her cape or anywhere else on her body besides her hair. This is just my personal opinion, but it feels like the easy way out when a character's hair color is complementary to their clothing color, especially when it's directly complementary. Juno avoided this by having purple hair and allowing another component of her outfit to be complementary instead. I love her design. If we want to do it, okay, but don't only rely on the hair to be the contrast. When the only contrast is on their head, it's this large block of color that doesn't help break up the monotony from the neck down. Her bottom half just doesn't look as interesting as her upper half. It's a bunch of tactical and techie details, but at least the geometric angular diamond shapes are still cohesive throughout. But that's the only positive thing I really have to say because these legs could easily work on Widow or Mercy as a skin. There is a major disparity between her power fantasy design-wise and gameplay-wise. Again, her gameplay looks amazing, but her design, let's just say if I saw her in a character select menu, I wouldn't be insta-locking her. I think she lacks personality and looks rather ordinary, to be honest. She's a damage dealer, but she doesn't look nearly as aggressive or stylishly distinct as the other DPS. For example, Widow, she's a purple femme fatale sniper. Genji, a cyborg ninja with a big sword. Reaper, a skullface edgelord. Ashe, a gangster boss with a bouncer. Sojourn, a cybernetically jacked super soldier. Even Junkrat looks dangerous and has a very distinct style. Mei also has a distinct style, and even though she's not aggressive looking, it's clear from her design she's solid and tough. She looks like an indomitable ice queen that will kill me with a smile. Freya looks like a 20s something pretty ginger with smoky dark cat eye makeup. She's pretty, don't get me wrong, but her design doesn't fully realize the experienced, powerful bounty hunter fantasy. She doesn't look like someone who's lived through her experiences. Freya is described as Overwatch's most renowned search and rescue operative. You can't exactly be renowned after just like 6 months out on the field. For a title like that, you had to have major rounds across the world, been in multiple Overwatch missions, and saved a bunch of lives. All that takes time, probably on the scale of years. Her peers on the Overwatch 1 team are all in their 30s plus. The youngest would have been Diva, but she's a gaming prodigy, and Freya was never described as a prodigy or child genius. So I think it's safe to assume she's the same age as her peers, who are now in their late 30s, early 40s, and beyond. I can easily see her being Ashe's age, 41, or even Sojourn's age, 51. Also, her personality seems to be rather serious and maybe a bit grumpy, but none of that is expressed in her design. Her muted colors don't reflect a serious tone. Her pretty and clean-cut aesthetic, coupled with her youthfulness, just doesn't read as someone who's older and experienced. Imagine a typical bounty hunter story. They almost never start off their career as a bounty hunter. Most characters begin with an intrinsic set of ethos, and their actions reflect whatever righteous cause or passion they're pursuing. But they go through some life-changing experience and eventually become just hired muscle, aka a bounty hunter. That's why the stereotypical bounty hunter looks older, weathered, experienced, and a tad grumpy. Great bounty hunter examples in games include Sadie Adler from Red Dead Redemption 2 and Geralt from The Witcher 3. I realized afterwards both these characters have facial scars, and that's part of the look, you know? I expect a bounty hunter to have physical and emotional scars. In anime, there's Askeladd from Vinland Saga, Revi from Black Lagoon, and who could forget Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop? To sell she's a bounty hunter, I think she'd look better with her hood on. A hood would not only give her a much more interesting silhouette, but could really sell the stealth aspect. Orange against blue is super high contrast, and when your hair pops that hard, you're gonna stand out in the crowd. A lot of people have said they don't like her eye makeup because it's too dark and smoky against her softer colors, and that it reminds them of Widowmaker. An idea instead would be to incorporate her face paint or tattoo into her eye makeup. Because we don't know the meaning behind her face paint or know much about her at all, I'm not gonna outright say I don't like the symbol. However, there is a bit of a disconnect because these swirls are rounded and organic looking, while everything else on her body is techie, angular, and geometrical. It's almost like having two competing motifs, a swirly round soft shape versus an angular geometric shape. You can tell the necklace's symbol is the same swirly wind symbol as her face, but even this is surrounded by an angular diamond shape. I wish these two motifs could have some overlap and feel more harmonious, because right now it's like oil and water. If you're gonna give a character facial art, I think it needs to symbolize a spiritual, emotional, or cultural connection, or just look super cool. which it doesn't. For example, Aang has an arrow tattoo that symbolizes his connection to the sky bison and to airbending masters. It also has the function of lighting up during his avatar mode. Other examples include Anna's and Farah's Wadjet tattoos. Anna has the Eye of Horus and Farah the Eye of Ra. The Egyptians often refer to the sun and the moon as the eyes of particular gods. The right eye of Horus, for instance, was equated with the sun, and his left eye equated with the moon. The former represents power, fury, and violence, and the latter represents protection, healing, and well-being. Fun fact, but Anna's voice line for Chinese New Year is
more lost than the moon in winter,
which makes a lot more sense now. This is just a general illustrative example of an alternative color scheme. Definitely rough. I didn't have too much time to spend on this, but this example brings out more of the teal as opposed to the gray. There's also more points of contrast with the black around the waist to accentuate form, and we weaved in some orange accents throughout the model. We also pushed the orange towards red in key areas like the tips of her hair. Instead of just orange-blue being complementary, I think the teal-red helps add another layer of interest. Here, I made Freya with her hood up. By changing her hairstyle to a single braid, we'll still have the pop of orange in addition to the sleekness from the hood. If we're committing to a fur-lined hood, heck, let's throw some fur on those legs too. This adds balance and reinforces that she's from a cold place. Not to mention, fur is soft, organic looking, and adds warmth to a character. She really does need that when everything else on her is so techy and tactical. This is just me having fun, but I wanted to try out a triadic color scheme. A triadic color scheme uses 3 colors that are evenly spaced around the color wheel. It can often create a balanced and cohesive look without sacrificing looking dynamic and eye-catching. I think this gives her more energy and makes her visually striking, but the color balance would need to be tweaked. It's pretty loud and is a 180 from her natural minimalistic look. This is giving cyber, ice huntress, boss energy, and definitely needs to be dialed back to fit within the Overwatch world. Because her cape is central to her gameplay and the most vibrant thing on her, what if we really leaned into the cloaked cape visual? By integrating it more into her design, it gives her a stronger sense of stealth and secrecy and supports that she's from a frigid environment. Well, that's all I got for Freya. Overall, she's a solid and serviceable design. They definitely hit the mark with the points of interest. It's readable who she is and how she works. My main gripes are her color scheme, I get it, but I just think it's too subtle to stand out among the other colorful characters, and a couple of design elements that could have helped sell her story and made her look more cohesive. This is my first Overwatch character analysis video. Let me know if you enjoyed it, your thoughts and opinions. Also, if you have any recommendations for who I should review next. Till next time, besties, take care.